Welcome back, guys. It's Seth Berger with Defense Wins Fantasy Podcast, part of the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network. It's August. There's football on the TV. Not great football, but football nonetheless. We're one step closer, baby. One step closer to the real enchilada. Coming up at the end of this month. Can't wait. Can't wait until September gets here for some real football. So why not just dive in? It's getting into draft season. People are starting to do that. But we're an IDP show. So what are we going to do? Defense-only draft. That's right. Does it make sense? Maybe not. But what you got to think about with IDP leagues is the first 8 to 10 rounds are going to be strictly offensive players, essentially. Then there's going to start the run on the defensive players. So we're just going to take the offensive guys off the board so that you get a little bit more feel for the order in which some of these guys are going to go. We're going to talk about it, give you my thoughts, how you can zig and zag and still get high-level players in certain positions. The way that this one is going to work out is we're going to do 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers starting, and 4 defensive backs starting with another 4 bench spots. So it's going to be all defense all the time. Gotta love it. But the key is, how can we make our team as competitive as possible on the defensive end when we're looking at just that aspect? So we're just assuming first 8 to 10 rounds, you guys kind of figured out your offensive set, and now you're really trying to push into the defensive side. Also, might be interesting, for a dynasty startup or really just a league that uses IDP to do 2 separate drafts entirely, mix up how people get the first overall pick on that or something. Be interesting. But tonight we're just going to go with full defense, and we're going to start off. Now, I did a random setup on Sleeper. I am drafting out of the 4th spot. Not the best, but it could be worse. So we're just going to figure it out. So we're going to dive right on in. Right off the bat, Micah Parsons went first, TJ Watt, then Roquan Smith. Not a lot of surprises there. People are expecting Parsons to make another jump, and as I talked about in some of my previous podcasts, he's going to have to do it in tackles. He's got to get that number up. The sacks were a bit of an anomaly, a little surprising for him. Can he do it again? Absolutely, I think he can, but he has to even that out with a better floor with some more tackles. He was outstanding last year as a rookie, but as a rookie, if you want him to be a perennial linebacker, if he's going to go just on sacks, he's got to get TJ Watt numbers, which he wasn't close to last year with TJ, going with 22.5. But you got to get up to 90 to 100 tackles if you're playing that linebacker spot. TJ Watt going number 2 makes sense just because you have the sack numbers that he's been putting up is just insane. He also plays that outside linebacker. The key is he defensive line eligible? In this one, he's not. So you're still going to have those boom and bust games with a guy like TJ Watt. If he was D-line eligible, he'd be the number 1 pick in the draft, bar none. And then you got Roquan Smith. Now we're getting into the tackle guys. That is a guy that is going to get that probably close to 150 tackles. He can intercept the ball. He can rush the passer when needed. But that puts me on the clock. And so I'm looking at, do I take, a Myles Garrett, the best D lineman on the board, or do I start looking at the linebackers? Granted, a few have gone, but you got Jordan Brooks, who just had insane tackles numbers last year. Devin White for Tampa Bay, Fred Warner. The way I'm going to go, and it's a little bit, I didn't expect to go this way, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Myles Garrett. I mean, you have just consistent sack numbers even when the team hasn't been good. So even with them being not the best team, Myles Garrett has still put up the sack numbers on defense. So after that was Shaquille Leonard, formerly Darius Leonard, if you're not aware that he decided to change his name to his middle name. Then Devin White, then Nick Bosa, Jordan Brooks, Derwin James, Fred Warner, Aaron Donald went in the first, and then Joey Bosa at the back. Then it went Foye Oloken, Isaiah Simmons. That's pretty high for Isaiah Simmons. 2nd round. He hasn't really even shown that he is that level of value at all. I understand they're expected maybe a 3rd step up, and they got rid of Jordan Hicks, but that seems significantly high. After that was Minka Fitzpatrick, Chase Young, Bobby Wagner, Budda Baker, Jamal Adams, Max Crosby, and back to me. Now, with Max Crosby, I am high on him. He is my breakout player. But as far as with fantasy goes, he hasn't put up numbers that makes you feel really, nice, warm, and fuzzy about it. Now, the next pick I'm going to take is Jeremy Chin. He's linebacker eligible, but he's D-back eligible. He is a guy that is going to get 100 tackles in that Carolina defense, and he's just too good to pass up at this point. Trevin Diggs went to team number 3 after that, then Brian Burns, Patrick Queen, Eric Kendricks, Antoine Winfield, and Jesse Bates. Let's talk about this run. Trevin Diggs, 11 interceptions last year. Is he going to repeat? No. Outside of that, not worth a pick. Second round, this is how people are going to draft in your IDP leagues. 100%. They're going to go off of last year's numbers. That's it. There's not a lot of experience when it comes to IDP and understanding of what actually makes a good player, especially D-back. You don't have corners in this as a specification. You're going to take a cornerback that maybe get 40 tackles on the year when you could get a safety that has 100. Just because you think he's going to be able to pick the ball off more? No thanks. Brian Burns, I like that pick, but then you go to Patrick Queen. Talked about him last week. Dude hasn't been over 100 tackles in his career. It's just not going to happen. He just doesn't seem to get it. And you're going to take that Patrick Queen over Eric Kendricks, who's been 120 to 140 tackle guy every single year. This isn't a dynasty. This is redraft. And you take that. And then you got Jesse Bates, who is not even in camp right now. You got to understand that. If somebody's going to grab him on a flyer, great. Move on. Grab somebody next. So that puts me back on the clock. I currently have defensive lineman Myles Garrett, defensive back Jeremy Chin. Starting to look at some of the linebackers. There's a lot that I like. You have C.J. Mosley. You have Logan Wilson. You have DeAndre Campbell. As much as I am a fan of C.J. Mosley and Campbell, I have to take my man crush. I have to take Logan Wilson, because if he gets the tackle numbers up, watch again, he had 100 tackles in 13 games last year. So if he just maintains those numbers, he's going to be a top 5 linebacker in that Cincinnati defense, and he can intercept the ball, something that Mosley and Campbell aren't exactly really their strong suit. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Logan Wilson as my linebacker. C.J. Mosley went right next, then Aiden Hutchinson, DeForest Buckner, then Devondre Campbell, Kyle Hamilton, Thibodeau, Danielle Hunter, Cole Holcomb, middle linebacker for Washington, ends the 3rd round. Jordan Poyer, safety for Buffalo, then Blake Martinez coming back off an ACL injury for New York. I like that pick in the 4th round. Probably a 130 tackle guy if healthy. Then you got defensive lineman Josh Allen. Not been the most fantasy relevant guy, a little bit questionable there. Then you got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I think a breakout candidate. A little upset about that. Was hoping he'd come back to me. Justin Simmons, Xavier McKinnon, Tremon Edmonds, linebacker for the Bills, Jalen Ramsey, D-back for the Rams. We're going to talk about a D-back. You take a corner all day. I'm going to be a happy owner knowing that you're wasting your picks. So now we're still looking. I've got one of each. I'm very balanced at this point in time. I don't really like where the D-backs are. I think that I have the opportunity with being at number 4. The person team 3 has 2 D-backs with Trevin Diggs and Jesse Bates. God, that's miserable. And Roquan Smith. So I think that I have an opportunity there. Granted, team 1 hasn't taken any, so we're just going to have to cross our fingers and hope a little bit. But now is where I'm really starting to look at some of these D linemen, and not necessarily just the D linemen. Go and look at the linebacker page and find the guys that are D-line eligible. That can really make a difference. Because if we're talking about the guys that are going to get around 12 sacks, and you have a defensive or an outside linebacker that can get around that many sacks, but is going to probably have 70 tackles or so, I'm going to lean towards that. And so looking through, I'm not liking anything really on the D-line at this point in time. Taking a look over at the linebackers, we've got guys like Nick Bolton, Devin Lloyd, Shaq Barrett, Landry. Man, it's the board has not fallen great for me. So even though I kind of wanted to go with an outside linebacker to put on my D line, the last really strong D lineman that I see is Trey Hendrickson there for Cincinnati. So I'm going to go ahead and grab him, pair him with Myles Garrett, and I really like that. All right, so coming back, Sam Hubbard for Cincy went right after Hendricks. Then Devin Lloyd, Pat Surtain, Harold Landry, Nick Bolton, Sauce Gardner. So what I wanted to happen did happen. Granted, the one D-back that went to the team that already had two, so that's completely ludicrous by them. But you know what? Miami's Javon Holland is staring me in the face in the 5th round, and I just can't pass that up. That gives me Jeremy Chin and Javon Holland 200 tackle safeties to start my D-backs, with Trey Hendrickson and Myles Garrett hopefully giving me a total of 30 sacks between the two of them this year. Absolutely, that'd be wonderful. After Holland was Shaquille Barrett, Deion Jones, Kyle Duggar, Hassan Reddick, Kaiser White, Bobby Orecki, Kevin Byard, Kenny Moore, Khalil Mack in the 6th round. Linebacker only eligible, though, so that hurts if he doesn't have that D-line ability. Then we got rookie Trayvon Walker, D-lineman Gregory Rousseau in the 5th round. Sorry, in the 6th round now. I really like Rousseau coming into this year. I think that he's going to have a breakout campaign. And then Cameron Hayward, who had 90 tackles last year. If he can somewhat repeat, that's phenomenal as a D-tackle. Then you have Jeffrey Simmons, Zach Cunningham, Jalen Thompson, and Von Miller. Once again, my thoughts on Von Miller is if he doesn't get a sack, it's not going to be a valuable game for you. So I'm staying away from a guy like that unless he's, once again, D-line eligible. So coming back, I've got 2 safeties, 2 D linemen, only 1 real solid linebacker right now. So you got to start looking at some people that might give us some benefit. Now we're sitting at some of these guys that are eligible at linebacker and D-line. Got Rashawn Gary, who I'm very interested in this year, but I think he might be able to come back for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take, goodness, Levante David. Hopefully he gets over 100 tackles this year, solid inside presence. I'm not super thrilled about it because it could be his drop-off year, but it's just kind of where we're sitting at. Coming back, looking at linebackers now that might be able to play some D-line, because we got Cameron Jordan for New Orleans, who is an absolute great player. He honestly could have been a playoff winner for you last year because he just started sacking the crap out of the quarterback at the end of the year. However, his sack numbers are very skewed because they all came very much at the end of the year in 2 and 3 sacks a game. The rest of the year, he did not look extremely strong. So I'm going to kind of avoid him. Then they got big boy Jordan Davis, the fat unicorn. And then it's just kind of some other guys that I'm just not extremely excited about. So I'm going to look at the linebackers, as I said earlier. Now we've got a guy like Jalen Phillips for Miami, who is D-line eligible, linebacker play, could get more of that 50, 60 tackle range. But I'm going to jump down. I'm going to take Rashawn Gary. I think he's going to have the breakout year this year. I think that he's going to have over 10 sacks, and I think he's still going to be a 50 to 60 tackle guy. So I put him on the D-line rather than on the linebacker. I wouldn't want to play him at linebacker. You put him on the D-line, though, and he's going to compare to a lot of these D-linemen that have already gone. So after Gary went Jalen Phillips, then Cameron Jordan, Bradley Chubb, Matthew Judon, Miles Jack in the new system with the Steelers, Harrison Smith, D-back, Cameron Curl, Derek Stingley Jr. goes at the end of the 7th round. A.J. Terrell comes at start of the 8th. Quay Walker, Denzel Perryman, Jordan Davis finally off the board, J.C. Jackson, Shaq Thompson in Carolina. Alex Highsmith is an absolute travesty that he went 2 picks before me. That was going to be my next pick. Outside linebacker for the Steelers, but defensive line eligible in most leagues. Once again, it's a guy that is going to get 75 tackles and hopefully around 10 sacks. At this point in the draft, you put him on the D-line, you're going to be formidable. So I've got, so far my team has Myles Garrett, Jeremy Chin, Logan Wilson, Trey Hendrickson, Javon Holland, Levante David, and then Rashawn Gary. So looking at D-backs now, I want to make sure I don't miss out on some of these big-time tackle guys before they come off the board. There's a few there that I still see that are a little bit ways down. Logan Ryan is the top one. I'm not sold that he's going to have a really great season this year, but there is one in possibly the next round with Jordan Fuller that I think that for the Rams that really could be a really solid player. And so right now I'm going to hold off on them. I'm going to look at the linebackers and try to see if there's anybody that I feel extremely strong about. And I'm going to go with Jerome Baker for Miami. Typically has over 100 tackles, throws in a decent amount of sacks and can intercept the ball. Not going to be the best linebacker on the field for sure, but he's going to have some of those boom games that's going to help. After him went Quinnen Williams, then Jonathan Allen for Washington, then Jonathan Abram, D-back for Las Vegas, Taylor Rapp, defensive back for Los Angeles Rams, and then Logan Ryan, as I spoke about earlier, then Jordan Hicks. So we're looking back at the D-line. We're looking at a lot of D-tackles up there. There's also Yannick Ngakoue, George Karlaftis. So there's some people, not anybody that I'm extremely excited about. Once again, looking back over at linebacker, we're kind of in there now. Now there is a guy that I think that he's going to fall off a little bit this year, so I'm not going to go ahead and pull the trigger on a Chandler Jones. He has the opportunity to be stellar this year, but I just think he's older. He's on a new team. There's a lot of chances that it just doesn't work out right. So I'm going to go ahead and avoid that. And I'm actually going to take a little bit of a stretch here. Yes, Jordan Fuller's still on the board, and that's given me a little bit of toughness. But he did have off-season surgery on his ankle, and so I'm a little bit concerned about his availability right off the bat. But there's somebody I'm not too concerned about, and that's Jaquan Brisker, rookie for the Chicago Bears, playing safety. And I just think he was picked with the 48th overall pick. I think he's going to have 100 tackles in his first year. I feel really good about his ability. I feel really good about how they're going to use him, and I feel really good about how bad the Chicago Bears offense is going to be. So that just makes me feel really strong about that. After Brisker was Leonard Williams, Chandler Jones for Las Vegas, Ofe Owa for Baltimore, Marcus Davenport for New Orleans, Jermaine Johnson, linebacker D-lineman for the New York Jets. I like that pick, once again, because of the flexibility that he brings to your team. After that was Quandre Diggs, Jabril Peppers, George Karlaftis finally went there, Kwity Paye, Yannick Ngakoue, back-to-back Colts there, Azeez Ojulari for the Giants, Christian Wilkins, DeMarcus Lawrence, Xavier Howard, Chris Jones, and Marshawn Lattimore. So, nice thing about that is I'm going to come right back and I'm going to take that Jordan Fuller now. Love it. That just gives me an absolute stellar foursome to start with my cornerbacks / D-backs. All of them are safeties because that's what you're going to do when you have D-back eligible. After Jordan Fuller was Darius Smith, Jari Alexander, Josh Sweat, David Ajabo, Ed Oliver, and Robert Quinn. Some of these players might sound baffling to you, but this is what happens. This is where people, if you're looking at just the queue, if you're looking at the average draft position for these players, it's all over the place because there's not enough data on defense. People don't exactly know when they should take somebody. Injured players are going to be higher on the board because they just haven't had enough data to pull them down. So don't be afraid in your draft to scroll down in the queue, to really look at some of these players that are down there, because chances are they're going to have better seasons than what you're looking at. So with me taking my 4 D-backs, I'm going back to the linebackers now, and I see Christian Kirksey staring me in the face. Linebacker for the Houston Texans. They're going to be on the field all the time. He's going to have 120 tackles at least this year, and that just makes me feel really good about my situation. So coming back into the 12th round, I'll go ahead and recap my team so far. Myles Garrett, Jeremy Chin, Logan Wilson, Trey Hendrickson, then Javon Holland, Levante David, Rashawn Gary, Jerome Baker. Once again, I'm going to play Gary at the D-line spot. So that gives me 3 D-linemen there. Then Jaquan Brisker and Jordan Fuller to round out 4 of my D-backs. And then Christian Kirksey. So that gives me my starting linebackers, Levante David, Logan Wilson, Jerome Baker, with 120 tackle guys sitting on my bench. You got to love that. So we're coming back now in the 12th. I probably need some D-line depth. I only have 2 actual D-linemen and 1 that's going to play it. Looking at it, there's not a whole lot there that I feel great about. So I'm going to take a flyer on a guy coming back from injury, and that's Carl Lawson of the New York Jets. Taking him in the 12th round because of coming off the injury from last year. Big name free agent, big money free agent. We expect that offense to be better. We expect them to be in more games. So I expect them to have more opportunities to rush the passer. And when you're putting this guy around guys like Vita Vea, Devontae Wyatt, and Eric Armstead, Carl Lawson is far and away a better pro and a better opportunity to have a really, really strong season. Once again, the D-line's looking like a lot of D tackles of people that I'm not too high on. Once again, another little trick, go ahead and make sure that you're tracking your people based on like sacks or tackles or what you think is going to be the most beneficial stat to pull it by for that specific situation. So I'm not liking the D-line. Once again, shocking, I know. When you get later in the drafts, it's a little bit rough. So I'm looking now for some D-line eligible linebackers, and seems like the news might be out on that. Not seeing a lot of guys there either. But I do see another guy that has the opportunity to come back and be great, and that's Bud Dupree on Tennessee. They got rid of their 2 middle linebackers, and he's coming back off of an injury. In the 13th round, I'm going to take a flyer on him and just hope that it ends up cashing in because, once again, linebacker that is D-line eligible. So at worst, I'm getting some more tackles than I'd expect. We're into the final 2 rounds here, and I'm just trying to pick together my team. So far, I've got 5 guys that are going to play D-line for me. I've got 4 guys that are going to play linebacker, and I've got 4 guys that are playing D-back. Now, the nice thing is I have flexibility at the linebacker's position if I need to by some of those guys being linebacker, defensive line eligible. So it allows me to maybe look a little bit more at the D-back if need be, if I see somebody that I just think is going to have a great opportunity. And I see that guy in Jordan Whitehead for the New York Jets coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He signed a 2-year deal. That defense loves to give fantasy points to the safety. Marcus May, before tearing his Achilles last year, was killing it for this team. So I'm going to go ahead and take Jordan Whitehead with my second to last pick, and hoping that maybe I get a little bit of a D-line help here. A lot of really good, not really good, but a lot of young rookie and second-year D-backs and safeties came off the board there. We're talking about guys like Dax Hill, Xavier Woods, Kari Willis. Well, God. Okay. Once again, this will happen in your league because people don't know defensive players. Kari Willis retired this offseason and yet got drafted. I will say that there was a quite solid pick of a linebacker in the 14th round. Jawan Bentley, starting middle linebacker for the New England Patriots, went to team number 1. That is a phenomenal pick that late in the draft. So looking really with my final pick at best pick available. Once again, D-line might be something I'm going to have to trade for a little bit. I feel good about what I have, not phenomenal, but there's not much there at this point in time. So the way I'm going to look is just grabbing another linebacker that could be, once again, a phenomenal player and that's Dre Greenlaw for the San Francisco 49ers. This guy puts up crazy numbers, but he was injured for pretty much all of last year. But you go back to 2020, and the guy just puts up outstanding numbers. There is a concern that he might have lost his starting role, but I don't think so. 25 years old. He's in the final year of a deal. I expect another close to 100 tackle, if not more. And at this point in the draft, where it's the last pick, to get a starting middle linebacker on a defense that normally produces great work on the linebackers, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. So following in, that is the end of our draft. So we'll go through the team so far that I put together. D-line, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Carl Lawson, and Rashawn Gary will be starting D-linemen. Putting my linebackers at Logan Wilson, Levante David, Jerome Baker. Defensive backs, Jeremy Chin, Javon Holland, Jaquan Brisker, Jordan Fuller. Personally, I think that's probably the strongest area of my team. And then bench-wise, I have Christian Kirksey, Bud Dupree, Jordan Whitehead, and Dre Greenlaw. Once again, Bud Dupree at least gives me that D-line eligible, so I have that flex position in there for the bye weeks as well. Overall, feel pretty good about the team. I think that when you look at it, and based on how I felt, D-line is going to be the thing that's probably going to go a little bit faster than you probably want to, just because there's not a lot of big-time D-linemen. But that's okay. You're not going to get all of them. Make sure that you take advantage of that D-line flexibility. There's some guys that I missed out on late. When I took Christian Kirksey, I could have taken Leonard Floyd for the Rams, guy that will probably have 74 to 80 tackles this year and probably around 7 sacks. There's just that opportunity to have those kinds of guys that are going to give you more out of that than what you would get. Once again, I talked a little bit about Chandler Jones. Zadarius Smith is another one. Zaven Collins is a guy that in some leagues is showing D-line eligible just because of the outside linebacker situation. But there's some opportunity to have. So be flexible when it comes to your D-line. I would say that you probably want to get one of those big-name guys if you can. If you start seeing some of them trickle out, some of the biggest guys that I actually like, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, Joey Bosa, more so on Joey because a lot of leagues he's D-line linebacker eligible, which also begs the differ, why isn't Khalil Mack? He's playing the same position. Give him that D-line eligible position, and he becomes extremely valuable in my book. Hassan Reddick is another one. If he has the D-line eligible, he has the last few years, but with him going to a new team, it might depend on your league. But that's something to look at. Just pay attention. If you feel like there's nothing there, flex about, and we'll figure it out. But the key to all of this is defense is important. Once again, even if your scoring system is standardized lower, you need to look at what positions are going to give you the highest return comparative to your opponent's players. D-line is one of those. D-backs is a little bit flexible. With cornerbacks, it was bigger. With safeties, it wasn't as big of a gap. But when you're talking about just D-backs, I think you're going to have a little bit more there than just like corners or safeties, because the people that are playing cornerbacks are idiots, in my opinion. Unless that cornerback's getting 100 tackles, I don't care. I just don't. You can get 10 picks. You're not going to be able to repeat it next year. You're going to get overdrafted, and it's just not going to happen. But linebackers, top 36 are going to be pretty close to each other, not as close as safeties, but you get to the top end of those top 36s, and you're going to have that significant advantage. Once again, my personal belief is I go with the consistency. I want the tackles. I want you to show up every day. Every week you need to put up points. I don't want the Von Millers. I don't want these guys that are going to score maybe 25 points and then score 3. I want my defense not to lose games for me. I want my offense to be a little bit more boom or bust maybe, but I don't want to lose because my defense just didn't show up. The defense is my consistency piece that's going to give me that solid baseline so that on offense maybe I can take a little bit more risks and take some of these guys that are high flyers and maybe if they can get 150 yards and 2 touchdowns on a couple bombs thrown by their quarterbacks, but next week they might only have 3 catches for 40 yards. Okay, I'll take that boom bust because the point differential between those boom busts and low games is much more drastic, i.e. you're going to get more points out of those boom games than you would a boom game on defense. So let's just set the bar middle of the road on defense, and let's go for some risks on offense. Once again, guys, we are into August. I mean, there is football on right now as I'm recording this. So excited. We're going to continue to give you guys some good content. Once again, Redraft League with the Flexes is that podcast is up and running. We've got the Fat Boys Dynasty every Tuesday. They're currently going through a lot of their studs and duds. Make sure you're tuning into us. Make sure you're getting your information because draft season's going to be here before you know it. And then the season's going to start, and we want to make sure you're set up for success. So once again, my name's Seth. Do our Defense Wins Fantasy because that's what happens. That's what's going to happen in your IDP league. You're going to have those guys that are going to win because they took the time to know their defense. I'm not saying they drafted early. I'm saying they're drafting the right players at the right time. Just like not taking quarterbacks early, you need to know when to start taking your defensive players and what defensive players people might be overlooking because their ADP doesn't match their skill set on the field. So tune in every week. We'll see you guys next week. I'm going to go watch some football. This podcast has been presented by the Fantasyholics Podcast Network.